smartest guys around are about to break it down like they've won the game a million times.
Well, actually, they didn't really win the game at all.
Survivor know it all. Survivor know it all.
Is this real life, bro?
This is Survivor, bro.
Yeah, that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are back after another exciting episode. Excited to talk about it here with Stephen Fishbach. Stephen, how are you? Oh, hold on. I muted you in the theme song. It was a wish fulfillment. Sorry. Stephen, please.
I'm great. And if the Lord is willing, we will have many, many years ahead of us of podcasting together.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That I've never heard you so bullish on the podcast before.
Well, listen, two 45-year-olds, we might have some time,
yes.
couple years ahead of us.
Yes. And look, we're not in a wheelchair. Yeah. We don't have a cane. We're out here still podcasting.
Yeah. Oh, what a night, to quote the Four Seasons. Really
Total landscaping.
Yeah. Four Seasons landscaping. That's
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, very exciting episode. You texted me like, wow, what a great episode. So can't wait to get into it here with you. We will take your questions as well. So go ahead and post them in the chat. Big Friday coming up. I'll be doing the patron Q&A. We've been having such a great response for the patron call-in shows on Fridays. I'll be live at 3 p.m. That there was so many people calling in for the patron Q&A. I was a couple minutes late. I couldn't get in. The room was too full. Whoa. It was like, room limit. 15 people are on hold already. Rob, you can't get in.
Wow. What makes a good question at the patron Q&A? Like, what makes a particular, like, what are the key parts of a successful?
I think just something that I haven't thought about, something that hasn't come up on the podcast.
That's where easy. You haven't thought about it. That's like a low.
Oh, Stephen, this is no small feat to come up with new things to talk about. I mean, this one's a little bit easy because I can really rely on that what you think about things. But I'm always trying to come up with new angles to talk about these episodes on the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So speaking of angles, this one had a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just finish live 3 p.m. For the patrons. That link is going to go out tonight. Go to robbinswebsite.com/patron. And then, Stephen, next week, we are going to be doing our live show in New York City on October 16th. So we will have a live show coming to you. Hopefully, can't wait to see so many of you there. We'll have a special patron meetup coming up on Tuesday night. And then because of my traveling home, Stephen and I will be with you on Friday next week.
Yeah. And speaking of Friday, that's tomorrow, which is exactly what happened on the show last night. I'm really into bad transitions. I think
yes. Was it Friday when this episode happened?
Yeah. Friday is tomorrow, and today is tomorrow compared to yesterday when Survivor aired, which was a great episode of television. And here's what was so great about it. Okay, these 90-minute episodes are sublime because we go into this tribal council knowing not one, not two, not four, but 3 separate plans. And we understand the rationale behind each and every plan. We see the challenges of the plan, why maybe Rome and Genevieve don't want to vote out Saul. We see why maybe Rome and Saul don't want to vote out Keyshawn. And then we have, what is this plan? Which plan is going to come into fruition? We don't know. And yet when it happens, it feels like such a beautiful, perfect ending. And what was also great about this episode, Rob, that I love so much was that, first of all, we see so much interesting social play. And there was also really smart, thoughtful advantage play, the advantage created this interesting dynamic around which the strategy kind of, rotated. So, I mean, it was everything you can want out of a Survivor episode, like all of the components coming together.
Yeah, great episode of Survivor for sure. Best of the season. Now, Stephen, where do you want to start with discussing the events of the Lavo Tribal Council?
Well, I mean, I think we have to start. I kind of like to Oh gosh, there's so many places to start. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I guess I would love to start with the emergence of Genevieve.
Yeah, Genevieve, who was notoriously underedited, now sort of has this like big moment of coming about, like, of realizing we
Forgot about the moment.
Yeah, of realizing that if Keyshawn was willing to throw out her name as the decoy boot, and we've certainly talked before about how you never want to be the decoy boot, and then you should never be cavalier about making the decoy boot, because it always puts their hackles up.
Now, if I may just push back against the narrative from the show, Keyshawn in his exit press today really tried to downplay that. I really don't think it was necessarily that, she heard her name in, that he was pushing back against that and saying that he felt like it was more, she realized that this was his move, the last vote was his move, and that he was the person who was really, going to be getting more of the credit and a real player, more so than it was a mistake on his part to mention her name.
Well, if I've learned something from listening to the exits, it's never any of their mistakes. None of them made mistakes. It was all the other players around them making mistakes. But I mean, there's probably something to that, that part of it is not just her feeling like.
Can I ask you then is that enough based off of that alone? Was it enough for Genevieve to say like, oh, if Keyshawn is telling Saul that in the fake plan, we're telling Rome to tell Saul, even though Keyshawn is working with Genevieve to vote out Rome, the fact that he sold to Rome that they're telling Saul to vote for Genevieve, is that enough to vote out Keyshawn?
Well, so I do think that there's probably some element of truth to what he was saying in his exits about this sense that he's this, making too many moves, really, right? Like this big player. And I think my guess is it's a combination of things, right? Like, first of all, they make a big move last week, or maybe that wasn't considered a big move. I don't know. But and then this week they tack back, and now they're blindsiding Rome, who was Genevieve's number one ally. Like, I would be worried if I were Genevieve about being on sort of stuck at the mercy of voting out my number one ally. And again, like we've heard over and over how close they were, and then sort of stuck at the mercy of this duo, and especially Keyshawn, who's like willing to turn on allies, willing to like upend things, back to back. Why are you putting trust in that person more if they are showing that they're not going to reciprocate that trust? And that was why I thought it was such like a nice touching moment when Rome was said, but I'm doing everything for the Alliance. And he really has been, he's really been so Alliance focused. It's never about himself. He shares all his information with the Alliance. Anyway, that said, like, I do think it's worth it. I think if someone is willing to make you the decoy boot, even in the fake plan, well, that's what the decoy boot is. It's the fake plan. That's worrisome, because it shows that they're not, you are in a way disposable to their plans. If the thing blows up, if Rome played an immunity idol that he found out of nowhere, if he played a shot in the dark, you're the one going home. Keyshawn's not offering himself as the decoy boot, and in fact, he made such a big thing about the fact that, hey, my name's not even out there at all, and like I'm feeling really good because nobody's targeting me. Genevieve doesn't have that luxury. She doesn't feel that comfort because, in fact, Keyshawn is targeting her.
Well, in reality, no one was going to be writing her name. Again, that was in a fake plan that they were selling to Rome, that Saul was not actually writing Genevieve's name down. That was not actually, this was all a ruse to vote out Rome. But I do think that for Genevieve,
world, like Rome would be writing down Genevieve's name, right?
I don't think that Rome was voting out Genevieve. I think Rome was going into thinking that they were going to dupe Saul into like, give me your shot in the dark, and then Rome's going to vote out Saul.
Rome's mind, no, I hear you. But in Rome's mind, Saul is writing Genevieve. I mean, that's a fair point. That's a fair clarification. That like, there's no person who is actually supposed to be writing down Genevieve's name, but even so.
So I want to know from you, do you think that Genevieve is playing with fire? Because again, this is an interesting decision. She has sort of like these more like stable decision makers in Keyshawn, in Saul, that are players that are probably, probably more reasonable than Rome, who is, a flawed player, but a loyal flawed player. And that's her number one. She's going to stick, or at least that, and in Rome's mind, that's his number one. Maybe Genevieve might be a little bit more fluid with maybe where her number one is ultimately. But is Genevieve playing with fire in the same way that we saw like Tiffany and Kenzie working with Q? Okay, I'm gonna stick with him, and not to say that Q and Rome are the same. Like they're different in a lot of ways, but ultimately Q comes around and says, "Hey, Tiffany's not with the 6. Like, hey, everybody, I'm gonna turn on my number one in Tiffany," and gets a bunch of people to try to write down Tiffany's name.
Yeah. So what? Sorry, what are you saying? What's the Q comparison? I'm missing it.
I'm asking, is Genevieve playing with fire to a degree in that? How far can she go with Rome? Where, okay.
I mean, I think it's the right choice for her, to be honest, because first of all, she knows Rome is loyal to her. And again, like that was Rome's biggest objection. Like, we've got this core 4. Why are we blowing it up? And she's just kind of created this thing with Saul out of the gate. So if I'm Genevieve in that group and I'm seeing Keyshawn, like, first had this thing with Asia, turned on her, now is like turning on Rome, who's supposed to be, before they have this like very straightforward vote, and is throwing out her name just like as any kind of target. I'm thinking like, well, I'm disposable to him, but I'm essential to these other 2 people. Yes, Rome is flamboyant, but like that makes him a target. That attracts attention to him. So, and she did have that confessional, is there a point where I defend Rome so much that the target then comes on me? But, now that she has this thing with Saul, I would feel like she's putting herself in a great spot. She's at the center of the tribe. She has 2 allies, both of whom are loyal to her, but, who can't stand each other, which has its virtues, right? Like if they turn on each other, they're going to be turning on each other first. And they're both big targets. Like Rome is a big target because of his flamboyant personality. Saul is literally a big target. And so I feel like it's actually a really good spot for her. I mean, she'll be voted out next week, but like it is a really good, I mean, and again, like Keyshawn, the guy who's just making all these moves, I would be nervous about him. Like your last, it's like you got to stick with a group at least for a couple votes to build up trust. Like the people who turn on the group and then turn on the group again and then turn on the group, it becomes, you can't trust those. You really just can't trust those people. And I mean, I get that some of the narrative of this episode was that Rome was like, he had passed what they thought was like a human marker. Like he had passed sort of like I don't know, like a point of like behavior that they felt was acceptable. And they kind of had reached the point of saying like, we don't want to be playing with this person. Like he's not treating Saul kindly. And so like we can take him out. We like Saul. We don't feel like Rome is like treating him respectfully. This is an opportunity for us to do that. Even so, it did feel kind of, there was a glee, right? In the way Keyshawn was doing it. I thought it was Keyshawn's big like coming out episode as like a strategy.
I mean that Genevieve stole it from him. Keyshawn is like getting all into like his mustache twirly ways, and he's like, okay, here comes Keyshawn, and then easy come, easy go. Now, I think that Genevieve did make a very smart play in the episode. I do wonder though did she go too far down the road of voting out Rome to be able to do the U-turn and double back? In Saul and Teeny, do they know enough information to potentially bury Genevieve with Rome?
Does Teeny know any information like this?
I think Teeny knows that the plan tonight is going to be that Rome is going to get voted out, and that now Teeny was blindsided with Keyshawn in all of that, so maybe that there's some plausible deniability, but Saul knows a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you, but ultimately Genevieve was the one who saved Rome and was the one who, stopped the plan. I would, much rather have that person than the people who were spearheading the plan. And it was incredible. Like what was so great about this was that there was just the way the episode built up this deep personal antagonism between Saul and Rome. And then that is the hinge on which this whole plan depends. Can these two people who dislike each other so much, especially Saul disliking Rome, on this like deeply personal level, like, are they able to put it aside for the strategic vote? I mean, it's just such a great question. It's like the fundamental Survivor question. Like where is the line? Like, how much do you value, a temporary strategic or, your personal connections and your personal feelings versus your strategic feelings? And what was so cool about it was that the episode started with that question, with Teeny and Saul talking by the well, where Saul said, like, hey, like, Teeny has this like big moral dilemma. Like, I made a choice that I'm not personally comfortable with. And Saul says, hey, this is a game. You can't let that personal stuff, get in the way. And then that ultimately is his decision at the end. Like, do I let the personal stuff get in the way? And he ultimately chooses to make it a game. It's just like such a perfect structure. Now, I saw a lot of people online who were saying about Keyshawn, like, hey, now you reap the whirlwind, right? Like, you sowed the wind, now you reap. Is that the
I mean, you're asking me?
Anyway,
you reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow, and he sowed, chaos. I mean, Rome not necessarily a chaotic player, but instead, he chose to vote out Asia last week, and now he's got this sort of very chaotic tribe dynamic that ended up hurting him. Like, is there any merit to that?
So are we talking about that Keyshawn chose to be super chaotic in this week's episode and then ultimately came back around on him, or he chose not to work with Asia?
To like not work with Asia and establish like that group as the four.
Yeah.
He was.
I think that the edit was a little wonky in terms of like how they presented this, because the edit never really gave us that, according to Keyshawn, that he really looked at there being an alliance of three, that he felt like that he had Teeny was his number one, but also he was extremely close with Genevieve.
Yeah.
And so that while like it may have been perceived more of a 2-2-2 from the Asia and Saul's perspective, and maybe even from Teeny's perspective, that I think in Keyshawn's mind that he felt like, I have a three. I have Teeny and I have Genevieve. And Genevieve is attached with Rome. And so that's really, ideally, it would be great if we could just vote out Rome, and then we have our three, and then Saul and Asia are two. But the circumstances just did not dictate that. So I did ask him specifically, do you wish that you could have done things differently last week? Keyshawn stood by it, that he felt like that they still made the right decision last week. That again, not knowing that Keyshawn and Genevieve have a very tight bond, I do feel like that if it was up to Teeny, I think that decision would have come up to split the votes. But for Keyshawn, he felt like that Genevieve was a very reliable number for him. Rome was always going to play the idol on himself, and so he didn't want to lose Genevieve in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, we said last week, Rob, that the danger here was that basically Rome, in a 5-person tribe, Rome's, steal a vote becomes enormously overpowered, and that's basically what happened, right? Like, his steal a vote was entirely determinative of what happened here. To the point where with just him and Genevieve, right, it didn't really matter what Saul did because Teeny couldn't vote. So where Saul votes for Keyshawn, but like doesn't really affect anything, does it?
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta give Rome credit here, because I think he's playing so intelligently with these advantages. To only go for the one tribal council idol, lock it up. I cannot be voted out here. Then I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe this is the first time, and again, like maybe I'm wrong here, that the steal vote advantage has ever been used in a decisively correct way. Now, Sarah Lucina, when she used it, she wasn't voted out and her target was eliminated, but she didn't need the steal vote in that point. Here, by playing the steal vote, Rome doesn't necessarily need it because theoretically he has Saul's vote, although it forces Saul to vote with him when maybe Saul would not have. And he eliminates the possibility of Keyshawn playing his shot in the dark. So he takes this power. And I think, what I really like about Rome is that a lot of people, when they have these powers, right, they get, and I've certainly been there, you kind of start projecting forward, right? You're like, I'm going to use this at the final 7 and I'm going to like this huge splashy thing. And Rome uses it in this very conservative way that I think makes a lot of sense in this new era, to just like, I've got this thing, people know about it, I'm using it now to make sure this vote goes my way and we can advance one vote. And like evolution of strategy here, like this is something we've talked about. I don't think we've actually seen anybody play this way, using 2 successive advantages in such a conservative fashion, to absolutely lock up like the votes in their favor. I mean, you got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I feel like it's sort of a advancement of sort of like the Sandra anybody but me. Actually, but this isn't anybody but me. This is like, I'm going to, use everything and I'm going to unload everything I have to make sure that, my agenda advances on this particular day. And so And if you're Rome, maybe you feel like, hey, I'll go out there, I'll find the next advantage too.
Right. I mean, he obviously thinks that, right? He's got tremendous confidence in himself to do that, which has, both served him well and poorly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Bloom pointed out how, last week we were saying, Rome put himself in this clutch position and it paid off. And then this week he did the exact same thing and boy, did it not. Potentially the worst challenge performance or the worst puzzle performance in Survivor history. I think it was the worst, objectively,
they
the worst
didn't get one piece, and they started at the same time as everybody else.
Yeah, a little before.
Even Jeff had to try to show it, hey, it's not a rigged puzzle.
That's funny. I didn't have that.
I don't think that's what he was doing, but he was showing. But I want to just one more thing on Genevieve and Rome. That is the right move for Genevieve now. Should Genevieve go forward if Rome has no more advantages? Has he outlived his usefulness to Genevieve? Should Genevieve be targeting Rome next?
No, you got again loyal ally who attracts
going into the merge.
Yeah, but loyal ally Rome is going to be a big lightning rod, and create a lot of just a distraction. I think that's exactly who you want in this game. Someone who's loyal to you, He's not even really an erratic player. I think people like to talk about him like he's an erratic player, but he's not. He votes according to his alliance. He sticks with the plan. He says what he's going to do, and he sticks with it. That's what a conservative player who's loyal to you, who attracts a lot of attention. That's exactly who you want to keep around in the game.
Yeah, but if Teeny and Saul start going around, once we get to the merge, Rome and Genevieve are very close. And then so all of a sudden Rome wins immunity, Rome's safe in Mergatory. I could see potentially Genevieve, who I think wants to be a little bit more under the radar, could end up garnering some attention that she may not necessarily want.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Although, again, we have Saul saying that he too is we saw the foundation of that alliance. So, I don't see allying with Rome here as a bad thing, Yeah. And again, you'd much rather have a Rome as an ally he's locked in than a Keyshawn as an ally, who is going to turn on you at the next vote because there's been a subtle shift in the vibes.
Fishy for Genevieve, easiest one of the season.
Fishy for Genevieve for sure. I mean, what a great play. Totally. Sees the way the things are going, not to her advantage. And I think Keyshawn is probably very right that suddenly he is emerging as this big player, and nobody likes that, right? Nobody likes someone else kind of being the leader of all the strategic moves. And of course, the ability to bridge that divide between Rome and Saul was so good. Obviously, the sense that she got Rome to come apologize. She got Saul to see past this slight that had been inflicted on him. Just really, really, really excellently well done. That's what we like. That's classic Survivor, right? That is classic Survivor. You see an opportunity to to create a new alliance by bringing together two people who might not normally work together. You expend your social capital to do that, and the plan comes off in a surprising blindside. What a great classic play. Also, this might be highly contentious. I'm going to give a fishy to Rome.
You're giving two fishies away?
Two fishies! Because first, I think Rome has played. I thought using the steal a vote today, again, first time ever that it was a decisive, maybe the vote would have gone through without it, but we don't know for sure. And it neutralized the shot in the dark. There's only been the two steal votes, right? Was there a different steal vote? There was me and then and Lucina. Was there another one that got?
I think it's come up. I think that did Noel have the steal vote?
Has it ever been used in a way that unquestionably, was effective?
I think that. So going back to Survivor 43, if I remember this correctly, Noelle had the steal a vote, and then she stole Owen's vote,
right.
and then used it to vote out James Jones.
That's true. That was a very effective too, because then it kept James, and James had an idol, right? So it kept
James had knowledge is power, and so that was sort of okay. That she's like, hey, don't take my because here's what I want to steal Owen's vote to mess with him, but then stole Owen's vote to then use it to vote out James.
Yeah, that was a great move, but it was kind of similar in the way of I'm using this to make sure. Well, I mean, sort of different because that was a misdirect, but anyway, I really do think Rome's play for the past two episodes, while again on the social level he has certainly alienated some people, he's also built solid alliances. And I really think that we have to acknowledge this way he's playing with his advantages of just getting them for a short period, spending them, and again with using it out of like right away to steal a vote, like truly one of the most interesting and powerful advantages in the game, to just expend it on the second tribal council to lock it up. When there's a world where he could say like, oh, I'm gonna risk it, I think that Saul's with me here, like Genevieve and I are together. No, he I don't think Keyshawn knows about it. Like he makes it a certainty, right? He takes a potentially flawed plan that we saw had a lot of other outcomes and really locks it up for himself to make sure he's not the one going home. I think that's really smart advantage play. And again, like he also has done enough to secure the loyalty of his allies, right? So it's like, yes, on the one hand, Genevieve was wary of Keyshawn. She also felt that Rome was a better and more loyal ally to her, and that you have to give credit to Genevieve, but you also have to give credit to Rome. That so I'm going to 2 fishies.
Well, I certainly can't condone giving 2 fishies away, but Stephen, this is something that you have been talking about since you played all the way back in Survivor 31. That you said that you got the secret advantage in front of everybody, that once you had it, that you were sort of like a huge target was on your back. You've been saying, if you have these known advantages, spend them, use them, get the heat off of you. And I don't know if it took Survivor 46 and all these players to get voted out with idols in their pocket to finally catch up, but it seems like that maybe this people are finally listening to you.
That's what exists. It's people finally listening to me. But it's truly, it's not just, there's that. It's like that sense of like, get the heat off of you. But there's also the sense of like not being like misled by your like new precious, the fact that like you're able to resist that like beguiling whisper. And I have spoken to a lot of people who have had those advantages and how they curse them, because they start to project forward, and you can never do that on Survivor. You have to play tribal council to tribal council, elimination to elimination. Obviously you want to like plan forward and look ahead, but once you start to like project too far ahead and try to like move pieces around just to like set up the perfect move, then that's where people get into trouble. And I got to applaud Rome. You could see a player like him who likes the big flashy move, who obviously like is a bit theatrical. You could see that personality type kind of wanting to like set up some like big blindside. And the fact that he has played really a very conservative game, I'm really impressed by.
He has been you could say it's playing conservatively, and you could also say like there's a little bit of like the marshmallow test of like that maybe like having the advantage in his pocket, he has to spend it as fast as he has it also.
Well, yeah, okay, but that's true. He's in the hot seat. But even when he when he came on Teeny showing Keyshawn the advantage, he played that off so perfectly. He was like, okay, great, like this is the group, like he didn't, and then he was like, I'm gonna spend this right away. Look, a lot to say that,
and he would have, for the record, and he would have been voted out this week had not been for the grace of Genevieve.
Well, right, but that's you could say that Genevieve could have been voted out last week if not for that, if Rome hadn't had the threat of the idol play. Look, Genevieve played Genevieve played a spectacular social game. Rome played a very bad social game this week. I think we can all agree about that. Terrible social game from Rome.
And for 4 weeks.
Yeah. But I thought his advantage play was really good. And I think like, there's a really good case to be made that I should have given him the fishy last week. And I think like the combined 2 week, 2 week advantage play and the way he kind of has moved around his tribe I think deserves it.
Okay. Yeah. Stephen, something that was super interesting in this episode this week was that we had the return of the chickens as a reward. And this is all so interesting. Okay. Yeah. So
first time there's no C award, and then the chickens are back.
This is very interesting. Just the whole like sort of like, okay, we had the C award, and then the C award is gone, and all of a sudden the chickens are back.
Was there a deal? Like, I'll give this award to save the chickens?
I'm not sure, but I think the story was that the origin of like getting rid of the chickens was Sia didn't like that they were throwing the chickens off of the boat.
It's a very stressful thing for any
very stressful thing for the chickens. So I don't know, maybe we sort of like landed in some middle ground where we won't throw chickens off of the boat, but we'll still have them out there on the island. I have always been pro put the chickens out there because for 47 seasons that they give the survivors chickens, and there's nothing that will cause more fights in the tribe than giving them chickens.
That's funny.
They let them out, who wants to eat them, who doesn't want to eat them, who wants to save them, who ate too much.
I think
How
it's
do
a
you cook
weird
them?
move though to take them out for like moral reasons and then be like, those morals were sort of disposable. You know, like I hear you, they're not throwing them off boats, but look, and I eat meat. I'm still like not totally comfortable with it. You know, I mean, and I'm sure this,
Did you all get chickens in Tocantins?
No, we did not in Tocantins, but we certainly did in Cambodia. We had a chicken and we killed her. We
Oh,
plucked
Juicy
her.
J, right?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
It was a very funny deleted scene. The Juicy J escaping. I think actually escaping. Jeremy let Juicy J out. There was a jailbreak. But
What? He did that intentionally?
yeah, I think
Why?
so. I think it's just to create chaos. I think it was just like him having fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very funny deleted scene. Wow, if you haven't seen it, it's worth going back and watching. It's very, very humorous.
Yeah.
Yeah, the I don't know. I mean, I always was fine with the chickens, but then like taking them away and then putting them back, just kind of like something.
Look, Survivor has done this quite a bit in the new era of like Jeff comes out like, hey, it's me. I'm your grandpa. Now I'm Spicy Jeff. It's like we're being nice to the chickens. Now we're back.
Yeah, now we're eating them.
Now this is the spicy nuggets.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it's fine. Now, they gave them 3 egg-laying hens. I feel like in the past they used to give them a rooster also.
Well, you don't need the rooster for the egg laying.
But they used to give them a rooster too.
Just for like fun? For like the cock-a-doodle-doo?
I feel like that they would get 3 egg-laying hens and a rooster.
You think
and then the survivors would get stumped on. What do we do? Can we kill the rooster?
There's a deflation in the chicken, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To make it annoying, to wake them up. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do with the rooster. But yeah, I was excited to see that the chickens came back. I mean, that's a big reward.
Yeah, it is a really big reward. It is,
especially when there's no food.
Yeah. And
let me just and let me just say to the Gata tribe, if they're thinking about it, kill all 3 chickens in a row
right away. I mean, A, I'm a little uncomfortable with the chickens, but B, the purely correct strategy is to kill them all. Right away, because otherwise, like, there's going to be a swap. You're going to be sharing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been, and this did not help me in Survivor All Stars, because this was my opinion of we got rice and we had it, and what I was trying to sell to my tribe was like, hey, we have rice. Yeah. We should be eating it. And Amber was like, no, we in Australia, we ran out of food and we didn't have any more. Like, but we're gonna have to share it with people. We eat it now, we get it. And they were like
the advantages, use it.
And even though and this is a lesson that I learned of like, I learned that day that even though I am right, that I can just also be quiet and stay. And that is a lesson that I have taken with me. And I can tell you that I am now successfully married for 14 years, Stephen.
Wow. Okay.
And many times I have been right, and I have kept that to myself.
So Sam was right here. I mean, Sam basically had that lesson, right? He wanted to eat them, but he saw that the rest of the tribe was a little more ambivalent about that. So Sierra loves chickens. She pets them. So... she
goes to wineries that have chickens.
Yeah, goes to wineries. They drink wine. Chickens love wine. They're luscious. The chickens are luscious.
Okay. How about baby Andy? It's such an interesting spot, and he ends up getting the word from Sierra about the Women's Alliance. And
did you think that was a funny moment when he was like, "I love you"? She's like, "I love all you guys. I love everyone."
I didn't catch that.
Billy Garcia moment, really.
I didn't catch that. Yeah.
Oh, it was great. It was great. It was like exactly like that Candace Billy Garcia, where like, Candace is like, "Oh, we love you," and Billy's like, "I love you." It really was very similar.
Yeah. Did Andy successfully completely destroy the Sierra and Sam alliance?
The alliance he's trying to build up. It's a tricky one. It is a really tricky one. This is like, whenever people ask, why don't the survivors just like tell each other what's happening? This is why. It's because of like literally this thing where Sierra tells Andy, this is pretty anodyne piece of information that the three girls have a name for their alliance, which is the Breadwinners, which is a fun name actually for their alliance. But it's funny because it's going to emasculate Sam a little bit, right? Like as the self imagined glue or whatever he is, glue gun.
Glue guy, not gluten guy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Not in the Breadwinners.
Not a bread. Yeah, that's very good. That's pretty good. But then so that she tells Andy is kind of like a throwaway comment and like, don't tell anybody. And Andy feels rightfully good that he's got some kind of inside intel with Sierra. Andy wanting to, bolster his relationship with Sam, who he sees as his number one, tells him about the Breadwinners. And then Sam's wondering, what on earth are you telling Andy for and not me? And I do think there had to be a little bit of like, really, you guys, what about me? I'm not a breadwinner here.
You think that he was annoyed not only about not knowing the name, but also what the name was?
I think that had to be, personally.
That didn't cross my mind. Yeah.
This is just like, armchair psychoanalyzing, but like, I think that maybe there was a glimmer of that. But also like, the fact that your best ally is sharing something with someone else and not with you, and then it's getting back to you. Like how do you not start to wonder, right? Because information is the currency of the game. And fire tokens, that's the other currency of the game. So
I would love to just talk about this, in the different parts. What was it a mistake for Andy to mention this to Sam?
Yeah, it's a tough one because he doesn't want to keep anything from Sam. He wants to like bolster his relationship with Sam. So I think like this is the point. You're like at every stage, the person is hoping that nobody that they don't go and tell anybody, right? With the three Breadwinners, they're hoping Sierra doesn't go tell Sam and Andy. When Sierra tells Andy, she's hoping he doesn't tell Sam. When Andy tells Sam, she's hoping she doesn't, take it back to Sierra. And then Sam, which all happens. Like everybody talks.
There's no currency that people love to spend more than your secret.
Yeah, that's a good line.
Yeah, it's really true. Yeah. It's very true. And so it's like, I got Sierra's secret. You want to hear it? So I thought that for Andy, like, okay, good. He's spending the Sierra secret that he got from Sierra. Mistake to tell Andy, I think. But then I thought and I talked about this with James Jones last night. I thought it was a mistake for Sam to confront Sierra on it. Like, I just feel like, because now that his objective is, I want to keep Andy, he made it harder on himself to keep Andy by confronting Sierra about, hey, why are you telling Andy the secret?
Yeah, and I'm sure that they have like a really good like interpersonal relationship where maybe he feels it's okay to kind of bring this up, where he can say like, hey, why aren't you telling me these things? Why are you telling that to him? And I'm sure he's just annoyed. And sometimes when people are annoyed, they don't act perfectly, right? Like they confront people, they object, they complain. But yeah, it was also not a good move, I think, for Andy to tell Sam, because then that could be a piece of intel, just to like build his. He keeps talking about how important it is for him to build his relationship with Sierra, and this was an opportunity to do that. And there was always the danger telling Sam that he would bring it up with Sierra.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've been there too, because a lot of times I talk about, I reveal my secrets all the time on the podcast. And then sometimes people like slide into my wife's DMs and be like, hey, did you know Rob said blah, 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 blah. And then she gets mad at me and starts yelling at me. And I'm like, who told you this? Let me know so I can ban them from listening to the podcast.
Did you mention your second family on air?
I didn't mention let me know so that I could excommunicate them from the RHAP community.
Yeah.
And so too much information doesn't, and not everybody needs to know everything. Sometimes things are just between a podcaster and his podcast audience and not his immediate family.
And I want to say this about Sam, okay? How was his freestyling, this positive character moment that gets its own confessional about his freestyling is related to his game, when my reciting a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem from memory, a lot more complex than whatever that doggerel was, is portrayed as ridiculous. Okay. I got clown music.
The difference is, Stephen, that he was freestyling. His was an original creation. You were parroting back something that you memorized.
But that's what Survivor is. It's all about parroting. It's like my game in Token Chains was based on Rob Cesternino's game. It's all parroting back things that you've memorized.
You're like Coach delivering quotes he memorized before he came out there, maybe to the wrong historical figure.
Oh God, it's the first time I think I'm honored to be compared to Coach. Thank you for that. Listen, I would much rather be Coach. But Coach was also giving, by the way, an original poem. Speaking of which one of us is more like Coach? The one who's creating original garbage, or the one who's bringing the the highlights of civilization to the CBS audience?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Could go either way. Gabby in the chat says the clapping for the freestyle was like the clapping for the coconuts.
Gabby in the chat. I know that, Gabby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Stephen, let's talk about the amulet advantage. Now, they changed it up a little bit. Do you feel like, did Survivor do enough to make this amulet a three-way idol instead of an extra vote, a steal a vote, and then ultimately an idol? Did they do enough to make it something that players will use constructively?
Yeah, I think it's a really good improvement. I mean, because previously the three-way usage of it as an extra vote was so incredibly situational; it was never going to happen. So we're hugely incentivized to vote the other players out, which obviously was a great storyline, right? In season 45, very fun the way like Austin picked off the other people who had the other parts of the idol, and the idol comes back to haunt him. Anyway, very very fun whole arc there. But I think they had to realize that there was no real way that it at that point, that's the strategy, right? For that thing, there's no reason for the three people to work together, given that that as a trio, it's basically useless. So I think making it strong as a three, and then of course stronger as two and stronger as one, because it's just yours. You don't have to share it. So suddenly I think the tension is a lot more interesting now, where there is a reason to work together. It does create a bond, but at the same time, there's also some tension of, some selfish tension of maybe it's good to vote them out. I think it's much better design now. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's much better design. And I thought it was interesting that all the players told their original tribes about it. Nobody tried to hide what was going on. And I think that I don't know if this is necessarily what the players were thinking, but I think it could be advantageous for them in two different ways. That one, I think that for the players who are on their own tribe, if you're Andy, you come back and say, hey, I got this thing. It's well, now if we get rid of Andy, now we've now given an idol to two people, half of an idol to two people that aren't in our tribe. At least we had some agency. And I think that with the tribes being even in numbers the way they are, I think that all these other tribes are oh, great, we'll pull in Teeny and Andy now to be in our group. Or now we'll pull in, Teeny and Caroline to vote with us because they're connected to this person. So I think it makes all of the amulet holders, these interesting people that the other tribes think that they might be able to pick up and pull in with them.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really, really good point, where suddenly it's creating this whole, show-wide dynamic of who's going to be with me, who can I recruit, and kudos to Andy too, by the way, for again, so thoughtfully positioning himself as on the bottom, which has some credibility.
He did a great job with that challenge. But I loved how he came in and didn't I'm not going to tell you everything. Right. It's hey, let's just say I'm at the bottom and I'm a good person to pick up later. It's almost like when you play in Blood on the Clock Tower, for instance. It's hey, I have a role that'll help the good guys. Trust me on this, and you'll need me later.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And he did it. He's very smart. Right. I mean, show them that he's available to be picked up. I mean, Rome, Fishy winner Rome did something very similar.
Co-fishy.
Yeah. I mean, two separate fishies. They each get a fishy. You don't I think it's interesting because the Emmy rules, I know the Emmy rules from time TV. I wonder if it's the same thing at the Oscars. It's very specific who gets to get a real statuette. And I think, both Rome and Genevieve get statuettes.
Stephen, let's get to some questions, because a lot of people had questions about this very exciting episode. Okay. And Marco wants to know, is the amulet worthless now until there's one person left? Should they have kept it more of an incentive to keep it a secret?
It is funny that they all shared it, that they all I wonder if they agreed on that we're all just going to go tell. Do you think actually that's a question, Rob? Do you think that is an important subject of conversation? How much we're telling? Yeah, they must be asking each other this, right? How much we're telling our tribes about this? Are we sharing it or are we keeping it a secret?
Yeah. And I think that in Andy and in Teeny, I think that they are mostly truth tellers in terms of what they're going to tell the tribe. So I think that they're going to go back. And so for Caroline, who might be more inclined to keep things a secret, I think that, it ends up being just a mutually agreed upon decision. So
did Teeny that negotiation?
Yes, I think so. I think that Teeny, if I'm Teeny, and I know in my heart of hearts I'm going to say yes, you say yes you say I'm going to do it with 1 second left on the clock.
Yeah, right. But I even felt like out of the gate, like both Caroline and Andy were like, no. And she's like, well, what if? And at that point, she's already lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. It seemed like that Caroline was going to potentially, like they presented it like Caroline was about to blurt it out. I just think that I don't have as much of an issue with Teeny ultimately giving up the vote, but I do feel like that was with, 2 minutes left. A lot of things could happen. Somebody else could panic.
Well, and Teeny had the best rationale of we're going tonight. I mean, I feel like that would be incontrovertible. I mean, they all know Andy's on the bottom, so maybe he wants his vote. But I think that Teeny could really have drawn a line there and said, we're going to. I can't. But
from Teeny's perspective, it seemed like that going to tribal. It seemed like a little bit more of an open and shut case. But that's Survivor. Things change.
Yeah.
But Stephen, okay, can I get you to lock in? Will the Amulet idol, be played this season by 3 or 2 people?
Oh wow!
Or
2 people, or 1 person.
Or will it end up going down to will players successfully combine to use the amulet? Yes,
this
or
is
no?
just guess, right? I'm
what do you think?
I'll take the middle. I'll say 2.
Well, I wasn't even so that. I was just looking for yes or no. You don't even have to specify 3 or 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be exciting if it could happen.
What do you think?
I'm going to say no. I think that the odds are still against the people agreeing upon it. And maybe there could be some sort of alliance of people that are on the bottom coming together. And then maybe it's sort of like a day, shout out to Gabby, like the Davids coming together to use their advantage. But I'm going to say the odds are still more against them being able to use it.
I mean, Teeny and Andy both in not great spots on their tribe right now.
Yep. So we'll see. Yep. All right. Josh Kettles has a Stephen specific question. Can Stephen explain to us the difference between a threat and an ultimatum?
I feel like an ultimatum is like an if-then statement, right? Like, if this happens, then I am going to do this. Whereas a threat is just an if state. It's like, if you like there's no, it's a threat is a little more open-ended, right? I'm going to get you if you do this, but there's a more of a definitive conclusion with an ultimatum.
Okay.
What do you think?
So I feel like that there is a difference between a threat and an ultimatum. But I think it's a different question of that was what Rome was doing. Basically, if I say hey, if you say to somebody, hey, if you're late again, I'm going to have to fire you.
Right.
Yes. But was what Rome was doing to Saul, was that an ultimatum versus a threat?
I think it was an ultimatum, right?
If you don't give me your shot in the dark, I will vote you out.
Right. So Google is saying an ultimatum is a demand. There's less focus on the punishment or the harm, but instead it's a demand. So it's you have to do this thing, or whereas a threat is I'm gonna. There's a demand attached to it, and there was a demand. If you give me your shot in the dark, or this will happen. An ultimatum can clearly be threatening.
Yeah. Is the word if just the only difference there of give me your shot in the dark or you're going home is a threat. If you don't give me your shot in the dark, I am going to vote you out.
Right.
Is an ultimatum.
But if you give me the shot in the dark, then I won't vote you out. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I felt very badly for Saul.
Oh my gosh. But you also
especially considering that Rome was still going to vote him out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean, the thing with Rome following him around the beach, how many times in the past have we mocked players for not locking down their target, right? With Ben in, Heroes Hustlers, and then they cut back and forth with everybody on the beach kind of lazing around, and then they're like, these idiots, why are they not following Ben around?
Yeah.
And he's doing it. He's doing the things that we make fun of people for not doing.
Yeah, in fairness to what he's doing, even though he is not doing it with like the grace of like Andrea following Malcolm around, like I think that, you know, when Rome was running around looking for idols, like there was a lot of like, can you believe this guy? Can you believe
Yeah.
he's looking for idols? I can't believe this guy. But there was no like, people weren't trying to stop him physically. And Rome at least is like, okay, well, you may not agree with his methods, but it was effective.
Yes. I mean, like, you know, in Cambodia, when Joey was out looking for idols, I would follow him to be out looking for idols. Like, that to me is how you play Survivor. You know, if you like, your fate in the game could be dependent on this person playing. And Rome knows that his is, right? Like, he knows that Saul wants him out. Saul is his target. If Saul gets an idol, his plan is screwed. Of course, you should be following him. Now, was there like a gentler way he could have done it? I feel like that's like, you know, splitting hairs. You know, like he was doing the thing that he should be doing. He wasn't doing it in like the optimal way, but there's no great way to like tail someone around an island for hours at a time. You know, I did think the stuff with like, you have to give me your shot in the dark or I'm going to vote you out was a little unnecessarily aggressive, but also like, why is that like, and it's like, I honestly, like so much of it was Saul's indignation, you know, the sense of like Saul being so beaten down by what was happening to him that like Rome should have like taken his foot off the gas as a human. But from a purely strategic standpoint, the idea of like muscling someone to give you something, you know, as leverage to work with them, knowing that you're going to screw them over anyway, like that's a decent Survivor play.
Yeah, I think that the issue was when Saul is like saying like, hey, can I just go sit on the beach? He's like, well, I'm going to be right next to you. It's like,
Right.
I think it's at the point you can just watch Saul and sit on the beach. And it's like, all right. Like, let's take 5, Saul. Yeah. Because Saul not looking for the idol is also a break for you. So I think that he could have like given Saul like a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not in the jungle, you're fine.
Yeah. But like, you know, if on Survivor you are going to err one way, you should err as being like more vigilant rather than less vigilant. I think like, you know, I mean, we've certainly, again, like how many times in the past have people just like let their targets wander off, find an idol and ruin their plans? And we don't like applaud them for their humanity.
And I really like the way that Keyshawn was like, hey, Rome, you better go check. Like, better, like if somebody's got to do it, better it's not you.
Yeah. I mean, very well played by Keyshawn for, you know, stoking that antagonism to the point that it almost saved him, you know, like the antagonism was so intense that at least from the story we saw, it almost was too much.
He almost had it this week. He almost like this could have been like, he was like one, like a little, like he was 99% of the way there to this just being a Keyshawn love fest this week.
You know where he went wrong, Rob, was when his floating head started talking to Genevieve, you know,
ideally.
That was where he was screwed up.
Right. If you could avoid that, her like her inner monologue really saving the day. Yeah. Okay. So, Stephen, this is a question from LL Cool Dubs. What is it about this season that we're getting so much more dynamic gameplay within the small tribes?
That's a good question. I mean, first of all, the fact that it's balanced, I think, has helped a lot, right? Like not having an absolute disaster tribe where we just see like the absolute, you know, the total implosion of not just a tribe, but like 6 humans is nice, and also has kept, I think, some of the energy level up, the sense of competition up. You know, I do think some of it too is the shorter term advantages, right, which are driving some of the strategy. You know, both because the players are so aware of what happened last season, and also because of these new, you know, fun boxes, you know, that they created. They Survivor just on their Instagram had a thing about the Flint team that makes these boxes, and you know, having this kind of like tiered advantages, I think was a really smart choice that has kind of helped power the. Does this change your opinion, Rob, about the 3 tribes at all?
A little bit. Like, I feel like that it's certainly been better this season where we don't have just like, it's not as lopsided. And I think that maybe they get more lucky than it's necessarily like that they've changed something by design. And so it's been pretty good. I think that what you said about all three of the tribes going to tribal council. I think that is a really big part of it, where that, we've had where it's usually like one tribe doesn't even go to tribal council. And there's such a learning curve where that the people that haven't been to tribal council yet, they're a little bit hapless the first time that they go. But the fact that everybody, like Jeff talked about, I forget he said it in the tribal council last week. He's like, oh, Lavu tribe, this is your first tribal council. Some people would say you haven't even started playing Survivor yet. But the fact that all three tribes have gone there, they've all like been to a tribal council. It's only day 8. That I do think that we're going to see a very fast-paced game that everybody's involved with from a very early point.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, and it's true. Like we do have a sense of like almost all the players.
We got a little tease of there's going to be a big twist next week. Do you think that we will go to 2 tribes? That's
interesting. That would be fun. That would be really fun. I hope that does happen.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how long we do that for. I know in Second Chances, they went from 2 to 3, back to 2, just for the 1 vote. Do you think that we would be in 2 tribes potentially for as short as 1 vote?
But it's only 1 vote because of the Terry evacuation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it
I believe so.
It would have been 2 votes otherwise.
But typically they have in the last couple seasons, they've done mergatory with, I think, 13 people. And so if that holds, it would only be for 1 vote. But, I kind of feel like if they go to 2 tribes, like 2 tribes of 7, that's exciting.
Yeah. A 12-person mergatory is even a little bit better, right? We don't have that one random person kind of like sitting out, picking their fate.
I feel like they love that.
That's so silly.
Okay. All right. Yeah. How about Tommy Guam says, if Rome keeps treating his fellow castaways like he has, will he eventually become a GOAT and brought to the end because of his attitude to the other players?
I mean, it's a viable idea, but he's such an aggressive player that I don't think you can ever think of him as a GOAT. He's already done a lot of stuff. If in resume era Survivor, he has a pretty good resume.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't think he's a pure GOAT like that. He's not just someone who's, we talked a bit about Q being a GOAT last time. Are people going to try to take Q to the end because
Maria was trying to?
Yeah. But, Liz was saying she would have voted for Q. So I think that, I don't see him. It's possible, right? It's possible that he could be, but he's such a big player. And it's not like, some of the people who you think about GOATs in that role, in that position, who have been obstreperous or angered a lot of people.
Yeah.
They don't usually have like also like really big strategic resumes in the way that Rome already does.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could get on board with what you're saying. And yes, he's played to advantages, but I really just don't know if that's going to be the kind of thing that the jury is going to reward.
But also, I mean, yeah, look, I mean, if he keeps on, if he goes like person to person and alienates them to the extent that he has Saul, that's probably not going to work out so hot for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously, ultimately, we've certainly said quite a few times that the goal is to just be there at the end as the person the jury likes most, right? Like, and not stress too much about the rest of it. But I just don't think he would necessarily be an obvious GOAT right now. Like, yes, if he like angers everybody, like if he keeps up the like pissing everybody off part of his game and not so much the like aggressive strategic play part of his game, like, yeah, he'd be a GOAT. Yeah.
Okay, Stephen, this is a question from Mana who says, do you think that this move may humble Rome a bit? He is too much. Do you think that this near-death experience in the game could potentially change Rome for the better?
I mean, he did apologize to Saul, which, you got to give him credit for. He apologized both. He went up on the beach and then he apologized at tribal council again and said, I really crossed the line and I shouldn't have done that. And so maybe, yeah, like, we've talked about how players have freakouts and then come back from them, right? We certainly talked about it with Andy after the first episode, how players have, these big emotional moments and they can kind of like rein that in and come back and play very well. And it seems like Andy's doing a great job of that. And why not the same thing for, more, this type of thing.
I don't think that Rome changes his stripes just because of one thing. I think that Rome is going to be Rome.
Yeah. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, but, Rome was not built in a day and is not going to change in a day.
Yeah. But I just think that, like, I see it all. I don't want you all to think I'm like a Rome apologist, you know. I'm absolutely like I thought the way he treated Saul was really bad, and especially because of Saul's reaction, right?
You love Saul more than anybody.
I know. That's why you should, that's why this is so hard for me to say. No, but
that's why you have credibility on this.
That's right. That's why I have credibility. So I did not think he was nice to Saul, but I think there's like aspects of his gameplay that are really good, and that according to all the metrics we've established as like for good gameplay, like he's ticking the boxes.
Okay, Cecilia wants to know: did the Keyshawn vote benefit Saul more than anybody else on the Red Tribe?
Well, I mean, definitely better than getting voted out, which was the point at the start. But I guess but yes, because it puts Saul on. It builds the. Oh, that's interesting because like then is going to be. Teeny's got nowhere to go but Saul. That's a really good point. Teeny's got nowhere to go but Saul, really, because Genevieve just masterminded the ouster of her ally. She's already kind of sour on Rome, so like it's great for Saul and Teeny. And then Saul's also got this like budding thing with Genevieve. Like, yeah, Saul's in a great spot right now. Yes.
Yeah. I do wonder if the Red Tribe ends up getting through this. Does Teeny kind of have like an escape hatch with the Amulet people of like to like, hey, Caroline, take me in, Andy, take me in, to be able to get away from them? And I wonder, like, could the Red Lavo Tribe end up getting picked off when we get to the merge?
Oh, that's a totally viable world where, yeah, I mean, Teeny's got this way of, this other path. Yeah. Why do you think Gata sent Andy? If they've always talked about,
that's such a good question. Yeah. I don't know why. Maybe they just feel like, okay, what does it matter if he loses his vote? But he could get an idol, and so I don't know necessarily why they would do that. Where it seemed like that Annika really wanted to go on the last one. Sam seemed like, hey, I should be the one to go. I was really surprised. Is he feeling like, hey, I don't want to put a bigger target on my back?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that. They had a big thing about it. They didn't want Andy to get an idol so that he could be voted out. It is interesting that now they're saying it's okay to go.
Yeah, so that's a good one for if we ever get to do any kind of exit press in the near future with anybody from Yellow. We can ask them that. Let me see. I've maybe one more question for Stephen. Okay, how about the question of 26 days versus 39 days. Does that affect the ethics and immediacy of killing the chicken right away versus keeping the chicken for the eggs?
Yeah, right? Like you
kill
gotta
it sooner.
Yeah, kill it sooner, right? I mean, and we've often seen these chickens on Survivor like not be particularly egg like chickens have to like be well fed, they have to be relaxed to lay eggs. Like that's like you don't exactly see these contestants tending to these chickens particularly well. I mean, I don't think
losing them
ever laid an egg. So I mean, I would, yeah. That's a really good point.
Okay. All right. Stephen, anything else on your mind in regards to Survivor 46?
No, I want to I'm just checking the comments. Everyone is very against my support of Rome. Again, like I don't want to say that he's like playing that he's like his social game is great or that he's gonna make. I just think that like there are aspects of his game that we should acknowledge.
I respect the hot take, Stephen. I really do. I disagree with you, but I really respect you saying something that might be going against what the conventional opinion is going to be. And so I think that's what makes you a good podcaster. And so I didn't like that you gave out two fishies, but I definitely I like the contrarian thought.
Gosh, you don't think Genevieve deserves a fishy, Rob? That's
I like the contrarian thought that Rome is actually doing a good job with his advantages.
But again, like, it's like the stuff like following Saul around, where like when people don't do that, we're like, you idiot, why aren't you following him around? And he's doing it, and he's pissing Saul off, but he's also doing it. So it's like he's an interesting, he has many facets of this Rome, as do we all. He is both somewhat annoying and also I think is playing well in some ways, and in ways that are like unique and really good.
Yes, but are they winning ways? Is I think the bigger question.
Right. Are they setting him up to win? That's
Russell Hantz was also doing things that were very effective and helping him.
Russell Hantz has got all the fishies. Every week, Russell Hantz.
Go back and check the record. He does. Yeah. But those weren't winning games.
No, that's true. But we together we agreed that Andy deserved a fishy for his work last week, and I don't know if Andy's playing a winning game right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but it's a possible winning game.
I mean, Rome is a possible. I mean, Rome is definitely has a possible winning game. I don't think Rome is off the table as a possible winner. I don't think he's a likely winner, but a possible winner.
Yeah, I guess it's only day 8. Okay, all right, Stephen. This weekend, we had such a successful launch of the first ever RHAP production of Blood on the Clock Tower. And this was your brainchild to say, like, hey, we need to bring a Survivor Blood on the Clock Tower video to RHAP. And with Christian Hubicki, who was very involved in the planning, we brought this game to the world, and it's been received with so much acclaim.
Yeah, I mean, the comments across everywhere I've seen them, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, have been so enthusiastic that it's been
the best
really
received thing we've ever done.
I think it actually might be. Maybe it balances my support of my apology for Rome. So yeah, I mean, it's really been first of all, it was such a fun game to play. It came out great. It looks really good. I'm really happy with it. We put a lot of care into it and into how the pacing and the way it looks. And it was great. It came out great. People have enjoyed it. I just wanted to play more Clock Tower, and I thought it would be like a fun thing to share with our community too, because it's like all the things that our community loves. It's like games of social strategy, with like secret powers and advantages. It's people voting each other out, people lying to each other, old grudges coming to fruition and heated exchanges. I mean, truly it had it all. So
And I know the people who know Blood on the Clock Tower, I feel like we're very quick to early adopters to come in and check this out. I just want to make an appeal to the people. If you do not know what Blood on the Clock Tower is, we do a really good job of holding your hand and explaining the rules of the game as we go along. So go ahead. If you're looking for something to hold you over between this and the next episode of Survivor, look up the Survivor Blood on the Clock Tower game from RHAP on our YouTube channel. I don't think you will be sorry.
Yeah. One last thing. Someone else in the comments is saying, Rome could have followed Saul around without dehumanizing him. Yes, I agree with that. But he also there's good and bad. And we're all criticizing the bad, but we should also, acknowledge the good.
Yeah. All right. Stephen, anything else that you want to tell people about?
Don't hate me for this.
I think people can look. You know what? That if you went on Twitter and dropped these takes, I would not advise that. But here, I'd like to think in the podcast space that there is still room for nuance in being able to say something that might not be the conventional thinking.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a joy, as always, Rob.
And you're not just a hot take artist coming in and just for the sake of being controversial.
Yeah. No. I don't want anybody to think that I'm excusing, because I love Saul and it was hard for me to watch Saul be harassed, but I don't want anyone to think I'm excusing the bad behavior. I'm just
and I have your back on your right to say to call out the interesting and potentially good aspects of what you see happening on the show.
Thanks so much, Rob. All right.
Yeah, I just I don't think that I think everybody is clear on how we both feel about this. I just want to say I stand by Stephen Fishbach 100%. I'll go down. I'll go down with you. I'll go down with you. Okay, you're not going down alone.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. Good, Rob. All right. The know-it-alls in Exile Island.
Okay. Exile Island. Right. Yeah. All right. So then, of course, if you want to be with us in New York City, go to robbinswebsite.com/NYC47 for tickets for our live show. We got a Big Brother last Thursday night of the season tonight coming up. We'll be live at 9:15 p.m. Eastern time. Check out my exit interview with Keyshawn as well. And everything else we have going on here at RHAP. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.